back to cash flow conversations. There we go. Just had to make a slight adjustment. Welcome back to cash flow conversations. This is day 15 out of 30 on my capital raising challenge. Going well so far. Today we are going to be talking about seller financing. And it's a very unique way to purchase a property as opposed to going through a traditional bank or going through a mortgage broker. Being able to let the seller carry the note can be very powerful for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll first go over just what seller financing is and why it might be suitable for your next real estate purchase. Um, Essentially, this works when the seller owns the property outright. If they don't and they still have some debt on the property, that's called subject to. That's a whole nother video, but I'm just giving the scenario where the seller owns the property outright with no debt on it. Typically, they might entertain seller financing for a variety of reasons. Essentially, they are acting like the bank. Typically, they'll take a down payment, and you'll pay them, you know, um, a monthly payment similar to a bank. And then there will typically, with seller financing, from what I've seen personally, there is um, the 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 loan will have a balloon period at the end of, it could be year 3, year 4, year 5, year 10, whatever that might look like. But here's why it is helpful. Faster closing. If, you are the seller, you want to close quick, it's helpful. And it could be helpful for the buyer. It could hurt though if you are raising the capital to purchase the property and the seller wants to close in 2 weeks. It might not give you enough time to raise all of the capital needed. So it's a double-edged sword. The down payment. This, once again, it could be good, it could be bad. It really depends on the seller's needs. Sometimes I've seen scenarios where you can buy a property with zero money down. It's rare from what I've seen. Sometimes the seller would want 5% down, 10% down, whatever that might look like. Other times they'll want close to 50% down, right? It really all depends on the situation of the seller. Maybe the seller has some high interest debt that they want to pay off. So, they would want a higher down payment to pay off that. Um, you know, it really varies. Typically, a seller will entertain seller financing if they're on the older side. They don't want to deal with the headaches of owning property and they need some form of an annuity. So, they might say, all right, we'll do a 30-year amortization with a 10-year balloon. This way you're paying them over the course of 10 years. And at the end of year 10, they get the remaining balance of that note. The third point, cheaper closing costs. When you go through a bank, there's a bunch of fees that are associated with purchasing a property. And it could be very aggravating. So when you go through seller financing, typically you will incur less closing costs. And the last point, this is probably the biggest benefit for both the buyer and the seller. It's less hassle. When you go through a bank, especially if you're the buyer, you have to submit a bunch of documentation. You have to submit your SREO, which is your schedule of real estate owned. It basically outlines all of the real estate that you own, your bank statements, typically, your tax documents like your tax returns, um, a a I can't think of the term, but it's basically a sheet of paper that shows your net worth. So it lists out your liquidity and your bank accounts, what you have in your stock portfolio, all of the real estate that you own, your life insurance policy, you know, um, and a lot of other paperwork with a bank. And it could take a long time to close too. Um, and there's a lot of back and forth. So, it just creates a little bit more stress sometimes. But seller financing does not work in every scenario. Um, so that's why, it works sometimes, other times you'll have to go through a bank. It really all depends on the situation of both the buyer along with the seller and if the needs align. Um, so yeah, I hope you found this helpful. And once again, if you have any other questions, especially about real estate funds or real estate syndications, let me know and I will be happy to answer that question. Chances are, if you are asking that question, there is a handful of other people who have the same exact question. So it would be super, super helpful if you ask. All right. And we're halfway through cash flow conversations. Very, very exciting. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.